and welcome to this week's episode of Not D&D. I am your host, Jessica, and this week we are going into the far reaches of outer space. And with me as my guide, I have Andrew Peregrine. Thanks for joining.
Hi, good to be here. Thank you.
So we are, of course, going to be talking about Space 1999, which was once a futuristic setting, is now a retro setting. In our lifetimes. So we're going to be talking about that. It's available to pre-order now. So links are in the show notes if you're at all interested and looking at that whilst we're having this conversation. But Andy, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about you, if we may, as I always do when people come on the show. So you were last on the show back in 2022. You were talking about the Dune RPG. So if people are interested in learning about Dune, they can go back and listen to that. I think it was like April time.
Yes.
And we then went into your background and history with games. So we've kind of done all that. So if people are interested, go there, check that out. So instead, I'm going to ask you, what have your gaming highlights been in 2023 and thus far of 2024?
Well, so many things. As usual, of course, managed to get to Gen Con this year, which is always a gaming highlight. So that was always phenomenal. And I wasn't too attached to a stand this time, so I got to actually play games, which I don't usually do.
Oh, nice.
Well, it's always a mixture. You go to Gen Con, particularly conventions these days, and it's my one opportunity to catch up with particularly American friends I haven't seen for a while. That I'm like, I've got time to play games. I want to have dinner with so-and-so or catch up for a drink with so-and-so. But recent years, we have done very late night gaming. And I do have, it's my particular highlight for Gen Con is always what has become our regular 7th Sea campaign with a couple of friends. We now play the next installment of the 7th Sea game, which is usually completely improvised by me because I don't know quite what I'm doing. But we do another session every year. It's our annual. It usually goes on till like 3 a.m. on Sunday night after we've all had dinner, and it gets very silly. So that's always a big highlight. Wave to Michael and Emily who play that, and James with me. And of course, publishing wise, getting Regency Cthulhu out in the last couple of years was a big tick box for me because Call of Cthulhu was my first non-D&D game, and it was so just to have like sort of a Cthulhu book for Chaosium, for Cthulhu, massive tick box for me and things. And it's Jane Austen, which I love. And, the book came out so well. So pleased with what they did with it. So yeah, massive highlight of that, definitely.
I definitely want to have you on to talk about Regency Cthulhu another time. So listener, you are listening and have piqued your interest in that, we'll have Andrew back to talk about that game another session. And any other gaming highlights? So those are the two big ones: the Gen Con, getting your annual game, and
and there's always cool things going on. I'm doing some bits and pieces with Discworld game now for Modiphius, which is coming up soon, and that is looking really good. And that's going to be a really good convention game as well. That
looks great fun. I was looking at the quick start literally last week when it came out, and I was straight at this. Fun.
This is the advantage of working for any company. I usually hear something and then I'm straight on the phone to say, can I work on this? Luckily I've got something coming. One of the later books, I'm not a core book or anything. I'm certainly not one of the main designers or developers or anything like that. But no, I've got a little bit of work coming in there. But really impressed with it. So I think it's going to be a really good game.
Excellent, exciting stuff, and that's crowdfunding next month, I believe. But yes, but and that is on my list of people to contact to have on to talk about as well. So I'll grab one of your colleagues to come and discuss that anyway. But let us get into the crux of what we are here to talk about. So Space 1999, the tabletop RPG. So this is based on an existing setting. There was a TV show in the 70s or 80s?
Yes, this where I say how old I am. And thankfully I was at least a small child when I was watching this, but this is the thing I was watching, parallel kind of with original series Star Trek. It was designed, I think, as a sort of Britain's answer to that to a certain degree. But of course, this is the time when I remember doing a Star Trek interview, I think years ago, and they said, "Oh, what got you into Star Trek?" And I was like, well, you have to remember when I was set between 7 to 15 years old, that's all there was. There was Space 1999, Star Trek, and hoping that next bank holiday Star Wars would be on telly again. Otherwise, you had to go to the cinema to see it. So all of those things meant this was quite a big deal for anyone who's sort of my age. There wasn't a lot of competition for watching science fiction, so we were all watching this ardently. We only got 2 seasons of Space 1999, but it encompassed so many things, and the 2 seasons are very different. It's so different that if you watch a couple of episodes of season 1 and go, nah, I didn't like this, go back and watch some season 2 as well, because you may find, oh, I wasn't a fan of season 1, but I loved season 2, and vice versa. So it's very, they had a big change in, not just the cast, but the style and the themes, and some new producers when they did it again. So yeah, it's a fabulous thing. It's a massive part of my childhood. So this is to a certain degree purely a vanity project on my part, because my inner 7-year-old is going, Space 1999, oh my god. And of course it is one of those series where I think a lot of people, even now, actually, if you haven't seen the series, you recognize the eagle that we have on the front cover, the large sort of clunky spaceship that is one of our iconic, most loved spaceships of all time. If you've seen that on fan sites and things, gone, what's that ship? Where's it? Loads of people have seen it and go, this is where it comes from. These are where the eagles are from. So that's where you want to check this one out.
Amazing. So for those of us that don't have the nostalgia and aren't familiar with the Space 1999 setting, could you give us the setup of what's going on in the beginning of the show and thus in the RPG?
Yes. Well, obviously, remember in the far near future of 1999, the year 1999, which obviously is, way ahead. There'll
be some people listening to this that weren't alive in 1999.
I know.
Yeah, but anyway, carry on. Yes, the future of 1999.
The future of 1999. We have a base on the moon, and this base is funded by a multinational organization of things, because humanity uses nuclear power, and they need somewhere to put the radioactive waste. So someone came up with the clever idea of, why don't we stick it all on the moon? So this is a science base, but it's funded multinationally by people who want to get rid of their waste. And this is in big storage area. And this turns out to be a bit of a problem, because in episode 1, all of that nuclear waste, for various reasons, explodes in a massive explosion that actually is bad enough to push the moon out of Earth's orbit. And the moon goes traveling off into space, leaving not necessarily a destroyed, but an utterly devastated Earth behind it. And there's no way for them to get straight back to Earth. They can't just fly back. The ships won't reach that far by the time they've recovered. There are also in some of the novels that suggest that the moon actually falls through a sort of wormhole and is like catapulted away into the deep space. So you've got all these people on this base, and it basically, they've got no control on where they're going. So it's kind of imagine Deep Space Nine but moving. And this is kind of the nice part of why it's great for a role-playing game, because the people on the base have decided, well, we're not getting back to Earth, that's out, but we're going to explore what we find, because we came into this for the science, but also we're looking for a new home. So we're looking for planets. We've got to go and investigate new planets, because we want to find one that works for us. And of course, out in this frontier of space, they're going further than humanity has ever gone before. What I also particularly like about this setting is humanity's not ready for it. When you see things like, I don't want to go down about Star Trek, because I love Star Trek, but the two are a very obvious comparison. And in Star Trek, humanity, there's things that are bigger and nastier than humanity, but we're at the right pace. We've got warp drive. We're going out there with the right technology. We're about the same level as most of the other species that we meet. In Space 1999, we are completely unplanned. We've just barely got space travel sorted. We've got some laser guns. We've got computers. Of course, this being 1999, the computer is the size of a room and issues ticker tape.
Of course.
Of course.
As one, imagine if computers could be smaller than that. How great would that be?
More advanced like that. I mean, obviously they can't be that small. Hard
imagine.
Drives, huge. Yeah, I know. So there's some of the things that got wrong, but one of the things I love about it is some of the things it very much got right. The look and feel of it. Okay, if you assume that the sort of big assumption is that you don't need to reach light speed to meet other planets, but when you look at things like their technology, they have mobile phones. They have these comm locks that are little video phones they can communicate with each other with. And when you look at the spacecraft in it, they very much look like something that could be made now. They're rocket based. They're essentially a brick with rockets attached to it. They still need base telemetry to navigate between planets and things. And when you look at it, you think, well, actually, given what we knew of 1999, a lot of these things, well, it's sort of famous for getting things wrong. Like, what, the moon's going there? That's ridiculous. When you get down to a lot of the details, they do actually make a lot more sense, and they do fit with existing technology in that sense. So it's a weird combination of very off the wall predictions and things that were actually very grounded in the science that we know today.
So is it fair to say this is like more of a low tech sort of sci-fi setting? So if you're wanting something really amazing, gizmos that do everything, like maybe you'll go to Star Trek. But if you're wanting something a bit more grounded and a bit more, oh gosh, we've got to fit this pipe together to make this work in outer space, is this more the sort of place for you?
Yeah, it's very much a human game. It's not about hiding behind your technology. They do have technology, and sometimes they're like, oh, how can we like nail this together to get that together to give this some sort of bonus to save us from the alien menace. But more often than not, they're completely outgunned by anything they come across. So it's about how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to sometimes deceive the aliens, sometimes take advantage of them, or try and figure out what's going on. And there are many episodes where, it's one of my favorite things about it, is many episodes where the commander will talk to his scientific advisor, Victor Berman, at the end of the episode and say, Victor, what did we just experience? What was that weird stuff? Who was that alien? What did they mean? What did they want? And his scientific advisor would just say, John, there's some things we're just not ready for. I can't give you any answers, rather than having a sort of neat answer at the end. Oh, it was the telemetric gravitation from the planet that gave us all a weird dream. It's like there's stuff out here we are not ready to know, and we can't understand. So it's very much about how can we just get from day to day. And there are some amazing episodes. I mean, I think I have to come back to one of my favorites called, I think, The Last Enemy. Is the moon comes near two planets that are on opposite sides of their own sun and opposite, so they can't get to each other. And they've been fighting a war for centuries. And as soon as the moon comes in range, they both realize it would make a brilliant weapons platform to fire at the other planet from. And so, of course, the Alphans are saying, can you just get off our moon? They go, no, we're fine. We're just going to borrow you. And they land these battleships. And of course, they're firing missiles at each other's battleships. And so the Moonbase has to figure out a way to get rid of these two immensely advanced people who just want to blow the hell out of each other and do not care if the base gets absolutely devastated in the process. So loads of great adventures and things, and I should say, for being a sort of 1970s thing, stands up very well. There are a lot of very strong female characters. I mean, it has 70s moments, but you don't have the medical head, for instance, is Dr. Russell, and she tends to be the quieter one, and every now and again she'll shout, "Oh my God," or scream a bit. But there's a lot of moments where she will be up against the base commander, John, who's quite bully. He's very angry Kirk, and he'll say, "No, this is going to happen this way," and she will just calmly say, "No, John, as the medical guy, this is not happening. You aren't doing." So it's there's a. And I think this is the influence of, I think, Sylvia Anderson, because she was watching a lot of the things that were going on. And she said, "No, I'm sorry, this isn't happening. Women are going to be have power and control and agency in this series, or I'm not having anything to do with it." So that was a very strong influence on it, and I think so. I think it's ahead of a lot of the things at the time as well. I say this as a man.
Sure. So we've talked a little bit, about the kind of the characters, like you were saying. But what does character creation look like in the game? What sort of people are we going to be playing?
Well, if you're familiar with Star Trek, it's going to be a similar setup. So you have people who are basically all part of a different department. So you have you've got the science department, the sort of command department, pilots. They've also got a sort of service department, which not only just make the tea, because this is a British series, so someone's got to make the tea, but they're also fill in all kinds of different places and sort of back up in logistics and all kinds of things. There's quite a variety of different things, but very much what you'd expect of a departmental exploration spaceship science thing. And of course, within that, you've got all the different things that makes your character what they are, what particular branch of science you're studying, because people use the moon as an experimental thing. So you might have been doing gravitational experiments, and it's like, well, I've got no first to report might have been there by accident. So you might have got, say, you've been doing a journalist who's been doing some sort of TV series about the base, or there's one particular character who's something of an arse on anything, who is the commissioner who was there to sort of oversee things, and he's very upset that he's stuck on the base. He was only going to be there for a couple of days and come back again. So you can have characters like that, but mostly people, if you are stuck on the base for some reason, you're going to have to find a department and fit in, because resources are limited, and if we can't have anyone just sitting around going, oh, I don't do that, I'm writing my novel. Well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to get involved in something and earn your crust. So so everyone has purpose on the base, which is important. And of course, what you will also be doing is setting off to visit alien planets. So you'll be like doing the same sort of landing team away mission that you would do in Star Trek. So there's a lot of very similar parallels to the sort of characters that you'd have. You can do aliens, but obviously it's a whole human base. But there are people they meet on the way. There's one particular character in series 2 that they acquire who's an alien. So mostly it's people who have lost their homes as well, join the Alphans journey. But we do have rules in the book for doing that and having alien characters join the base. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Fab. And of course, the system is based on the 2D20 system that Modiphius uses. So if people have played other games from Modiphius, this will feel familiar. But I assume there are little tweaks in the mechanics to make it fit with the setting. What sort of little tweaks have you got with that?
We've got a couple. Well, this is the main thing I wanted to do. The reason I did this with 2D20 and Modiphius is because I wanted it to be compatible with Star Trek, because there is obviously a very big crossover between the two. So one of the things, and weirdly, it's been more compatible since they updated Star Trek, because I was based mostly on what I know from Dune. And so this doesn't use the challenge dice, we just use the D20s for this one. And the two extra things I've added in are combat is a little bit different. It's more based on what you're trying to do than simply hitting the alien. So you have an objective you're trying to get to. But I've used the spirit system from Dreams and Machines. So you've got a form of hit points, but they can also be a sort of general willpower thing that gets knocked down. If you're in sort of hostile environments, you might lose spirit that way as well. And the last one that I'm a big fan of is the hope mechanic, which is a thing that every character has, what they call a hope, which is the thing that keeps you going. It might be a thing, it might be you've got romantic relationships, it might be that you thrive on competition, you might have a pet, even something like that. So it's the thing that makes you get through the day. And you
could it be a cup of tea?
It could actually be a cup of tea. Well, that's one of the ways you might go. I just because that would come down to, I just want to sit down and a rest, and that's what makes me feel better. And so I'm going to have a cup of tea. So what you can do as part of the game is you can say, I'd like to do a hope scene, which is a particular scene you do that is about your character figuring out some stuff about themselves. So it might be, for instance, if just having some alone time is your hope, you might say, I'm going to go and sit down, have a cup of tea. You do have to do a roll for that. There is a skill roll to do it. It's a very easy skill roll. If you succeed, you have had a good, reasonable time with things. Your hobby has gone right. It was a nice cup of tea. You got the chance to sit down. That was fine, and you actually get some momentum for that. So you return refreshed to the game. But if it fails, then someone interrupted you. That it wasn't the right tea. It wasn't. You put too much milk in. Whatever that sort of thing. You just you don't get what you needed from it, and you don't get the bonus, but you don't see a penalty. And they're designed to have little moments where you deal with the day-to-day life of your character and just remind yourself who your character is, what they really do, what makes them feel happy, and go in a little bit further into their personality and what they do, which I think is really nice, sort of jump start into getting some character details going.
Yeah, I really like that. That actually reminds me of like they have a similar mechanic in 10 Candles for a hope dice in there, so that can remind me of that. And that can be great when you have a load of action, a load of stuff going on, to just have that little quiet moment of like with the character of the person behind it. So that's really nice. I like that.
Cool. And you're right, I really need to read 10 Candles. That's been on my list for ages. I doubly need to read it now.
I'll run a game for you next time we hang out. Anytime. But
so good. Yeah.
There's an episode on Not D&D that you can listen to learn more about it as well. But anyway, as I was saying, so okay, great. So I like those little moments. So what if I'm sitting down to run a game of this for people, how do I structure my sessions? Because it's a TV show, I imagine it can feel, I could make it feel episodic in that way, with having a new encounter each time. Is that the case?
Yeah, very much so. You've got the option, and you've got the option that where the players can't avoid it. So you say, "Oh, there's a new alien planet coming." You say, "Well, we'll just avoid. We won't go there." It's like, "What do you mean you won't go there?" This
The
time
moon is hurtling towards
the moon
it.
is hurtling towards it. You've got to do it, or it's going to a weird spatial anomaly or something. You have to investigate. You can't not do the adventure, which I think a lot of GMs will be going, "Oh, thank God." So that's an advantage. Things are, as you imagine, very episodic. Generally, the moon isn't going to stop. So it's one of the things I like about this as well, is you have a certain limited time to do the adventures. If you're passing a planet, you can't just go, "Let's stop here and investigate for a while." You've got to get some people down there, find out if it's viable, because you also need time. If it turns out to be a potential new home, you need to get everyone ready to clear the base and strip all the technology and get all the people down there. You've got about 300 men and women. You need to get on the Eagles down to the planet. So you need to be pretty sure, and you've got a very limited time to do that, and you need to leave time before the moon passes by. So everything's a little bit of a rush for everything. I mean, it can work out for the GM can make it as long as they think it is. But if you get captured by aliens and the aliens are going, "Yes, you will be with us for another year and then we will see your trial." We're like, "No, mate, the moon's going to be gone. Sorry, can we speed this up?" And, so you've always got that time pressure, which is nice. But in the setting and the series, one of the things that was very cool about the series is it has such a variety of episodes. You have all the things, investigate alien planet, aliens visit the base, but there's an awful lot of horror in Space 1999. I mean, some episodes so scary that I had to, I mean, this is children's television in the 70s, so it's terrifying. This is why Gen X is frightened of nothing. We watch children's television in the 70s. One episode I particularly remember was, it scared the hell out of me, and it was so scary that when I came back as an adult, thinking, "Oh, DVD, I'll watch Space 1999 again." I got to Dragon's Domain because everyone who's a fan knows this is the episode that terrified them as well. I got ready to put this in the DVD player and went, "Ooh, it was a scary one. Am I ready for this?" And it still has, I mean, yes, it's got a bit of a rubber monster, but it's got there are some horrific layers to where they did things, and there's I would describe for go and watch the episode because you'll watch children were watching this. So there's one particularly atmospheric one that you would not see in science fiction, where it opens with someone playing a sort of electric sitar, Vina type instrument that's echoing through the bass, this sort of electronic string music echoing because they're all listening to a concert, and the camera pans over to a group of scientists having a seance because they're doing something with one of their biological experiments, and it's dark and there's this wind starts picking up, and you're thinking, you don't see that in science fiction, this sort of mixture of horror and ghost stories, as well as exploration and all the sort of things that again, I keep going back to this, all the sort of things you'd see in Star Trek. It's the moral questions, strange things, what is humanity, what are we doing out here, and can we survive? So there's a great variety of stuff that you can play, and anything can come at you, because I say you're on the frontier, you don't know what is out there. It could be anything.
And I imagine the game suits like campaigns or like one-shot sessions, because as a campaign you have, like you say, episodic elements with an overarching series kind of theme, but then you can just do, we're sitting down to play at a convention, we're doing, when the moon is passing this thing, this is the thing, and you've got a great timer on it, like you say, keeping it to 4 hours sometimes is a thing, and it's like, well, if we get to the end of 4 hours and the moon's passed, that's when we're ending the session. Fantastic. And does the game come with like any pre-built adventures, or does it have guidance for making your own, or what sort of approach does the book take?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of both. So we've got the quick start that is out. You get that when you pre-order at the moment, and that'll be on a free general release, I think, later on when we go to general release. That one covers you've got the adventure in there, covers the breakaway of the moon. So it's what your characters, it's showing how your characters can get involved in the episode and do their own thing with it. But in the core book, we have obviously a whole pile of stuff for how to create adventures, because I'm very aware, this is one of the nice things about it, very aware that we have a lot of new gamers are coming to it with this. So there's a lot of people who are fans of Space 1999 who are going, so what's this role-playing game? Is this like Dungeons and Dragons or something? So, you know, we've got to give, you know, we've got a lot of stuff in the book designed for someone who's new to gaming, but also for the old hands to pick things up. And of course, there is an adventure in the back of the book. That one is called Project Arrow, and it's about a discovery that there may be a way to get home, but only if they work quick enough for some people to get home. But of course, as the adventure goes on, some people are not quite so happy with the idea of a lottery about who gets to do it. So it's a base adventure, and there's lots of backwards and forwards going on in that one. There's a lot of science, a lot of action, things like that.
Nice.
So yeah, and hopefully, if things go well, we will do more. Hopefully, you know, it's a little bit of a toe in the water for Anderson, because I sort of told the very long, convoluted story about how this came to pass. But it's Anderson who are making it now, and as I was talking to them, they went, actually, we'd like to do a role-playing game, but we don't quite know where to start. So it's a very much a partnership between the two. Anderson's doing the thing, and Modiphius has been amazing help and really supported them with their systems and everything. And so we're sort of educating Anderson how this works and what we do with it. But if it goes well, then we could be doing more Anderson properties. We could be doing more books for this. But it's very much see how it works out first. But the response has been great so far. I think there's a lot of people who've gone, oh, nostalgia. Certainly people my age have gone, oh, Space 1999. So hopefully there's a lot of excitement, and hopefully that will translate into good sales for the book, and we'll see more. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Well, if anyone listening or watching is interested, like I said, the link's been in the show notes or on the screen, so you can pre-order that now and take a look, because the best way to support indie tabletop games is to buy them, really. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on and talking about Space 1999. It's a really exciting property. I'm so glad we get to pre-order it now and run around in space. For me, it's really interesting because it's a more grounded, sort of low-tech sort of space, which I find a different sort of thing, because I obviously love a bit of Star Trek, but sometimes it's nice to have that more human, grounded element of being out of your depth and being the rookie. I like that style of storytelling, and this seems to lean into that really nicely. Before you go, though, I have a question to ask you, which I ask everyone, is if you have any recommendations for any other tabletop role-playing games. And the rules are, it can't be a game that you've worked on and created, and of course it can not be D&D.
Yes. Well, luckily, I mean, this is the problem. This industry is a village, so it's very hard to find something you haven't worked on or don't know friends who have worked on.
Well, you could do friends have worked on. That's okay.
Well, I'll sort of sideways too, because one I've talked about. There's one called Our Brilliant Ruin that my friend Rachel Wilkinson has been working on from Studio Hermitage, which is a sort of Victorian horror mystery game with an Edwardian style set in the 1920s. It's got a whole mix of stuff. But in terms of independent stuff, I played at Gen Con. I do have to put in a vote for, I can't remember this correctly, Yusuba's Bed and Breakfast, which is a phenomenal storytelling game. It's got an array of games. It's basically about a bed and breakfast that has a selection of very weird and strange characters. And while they're all pre-gen characters, they are so intriguing and bizarre that you won't bother. You will want to play these characters. There's my favorite one, that the bunnies who dress up in pretty clothes. There's a group of like bunny rabbits that just like to play dress up. It's just adorable. And there's people trying to, there's like sirens who are left with a lonely voice or something, and one character I think who's got a rain cloud over him all the time. And all of these characters have a path defined for them as they go through adventures. They can achieve things that will add to their path, and when they finish their sort of get enough points on their path, they sort of resolve their the character thing. So for instance, the guy with the rain cloud, I think when he's resolved his path, his rain clouds disappear, a rainbow appears, and he leaves the bed and breakfast to go and find fun somewhere. So there's lovely, beautiful stories. Very simple system where it's simply, if you do something that's detrimental, you get a point, and if you want to do something that's a bonus, you spend a point, and that is all there is to it. And so it's a very narrative game, all set out to play as sort of different bits. The box set is lovely. And it's one of those games where I'm thinking, if I can get my group together, say, right, we are going to play this start to finish, put aside everything else. We're going to just go through this. I'll buy the box set, and it's designed for you to rip bits up and tear pages out, put stickers on things. But So much good stuff. Really, just lovely story. Beautiful narrative game, and well worth a look. And just I'm hoping to put aside some time and really just get into the whole world of it. And the journey of all of these characters just looks amazing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's my call.
That's two great, brilliant recommendations of Our Brilliant Ruin and Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, both of which have been guests on Not D&D, so you can go back into the archives and we'll have both of them on yet. So you can go and watch a full episode with the creators of those if you'd like to hear more about Andy's recommendations there. But for now, I think that is all. Thank you so much for your time and coming on. We'll definitely be having you back to talk about all the other projects you're working on, maybe Regency Cthulhu next. But you keep making games, Andy, so I'll keep having you back on, I think.
It's lovely to be here. Glad to have it.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, and thanks to everyone that watched and listened. But that's all for this week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.